Scott. The meeting tonight is for the conduct of town business by the town board. The public is invited to participate at the items marked on the agenda, public comment. During that segment of the meeting, if you have a question or comment for the supervisor, please raise your hand and wait to be acknowledged. Please state your full name and limit your remarks to 3 minutes. Thank you for your anticipated cooperation.
Thank you. And you can see we're set up a little differently today because we're having a joint meeting of the planning board and town board, so we wanted to make sure that we're not talking down to the planning board, that we're talking as a conversation, and that's why we set it up this way. We also do have a presentation, question and answer by Brandy Nelson, who's going to be our engineer for our North Pier rebuild, who she did the South Pier build, so she knows everything there is to know about our Milton Landing. So we got quite a bit on our agenda tonight, so let's rise for the pledge, please. Okay, so Eddie wanted me to tell everybody he apologizes, but he's got the stomach bug, so he won't be here tonight. And I said, don't come anywhere near us, because no one wants to get sick. So he apologizes. But I need a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make the motion
to approve the agenda.
All right, Manny, I'll let you have that one. I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Motion to approve the minutes from the March 13th, 2023 town board meeting.
I'll make that motion to approve the March 13th meeting, 2023.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved. And I need a motion to approve the minutes from the March 13th, 2023 public hearing.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes from the March 13th public hearing.
All right.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved. Authorization of bills, we have an abstract of $178,398.68. I need a motion to pay our bills.
I'll make a motion to pay the bills.
Need a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved. Supervisors update. I'm going to just keep it short tonight. Again, just a tip on Tomback. Tomback, again, is still moving forward. You might have seen that you haven't seen any carpenters on the job. The gentleman, WND, Carlos, who is the owner of WND, has had a little issue with the Carpenters Union. He assures me he will have it fixed by this week. If not, we have assurances in our contract that deals with these types of issues, but I got to give him an opportunity to rectify the situation. Having said that, the plumbing has been completed inside in the floor. It passed inspection last week, so the plumbing is moving forward. A bunch of the walls and sheetrock have been put up in the back room. Myself, Jerry, and Gary, our IT committee, met with a bunch of audio-visual specialists up there. I just got an estimate back tonight. I don't want to shock the board, but I'm going to shock the board. But, you know, to put camera systems, video systems, audio, microphones, all the things that go into the, because you have two sides of the building, it could be upwards of around $50,000. So, again, we're getting other estimates, but I'm just going to give you guys a heads up where we're going with this. Now, we could say we're not going to do it, and it probably would cost more later on because now the walls are open. So that price is with the walls opening and them easily putting wires in. It's kind of shocking to me a little, but again, I'm going to see what the other estimates come in as. But right now we're in that number, so if we have to go that way, I mean, obviously we need audio, visual, and that stuff at a rec center and a community center. So if we have to go that route, we'll have to look at our budgetary finances, what funds we would have to pull from, and things like that. I would update you on that, but we're not going to go anywhere until we get all 3 estimates. Also, staying on Tomback, Jerry's been working with camera system people also. Again, this is for a camera system for the exterior part of the building, the interior part of the building. As we've been doing for the last couple of years, we're putting audio-visual in all our buildings and our parks, so we have security, and all of them are transferred back to the police department, so if anything breaks or gets vandalized, we have some kind of visual of it. And those estimates could be in the $20,000, $25,000 range. So again, these are big numbers that I'm throwing at you that are in addition to the regular cost that we're paying for this building.
Now, how are you advertising this?
These are all through just going out, calling people to get estimates at this point. They're not, these aren't like private public bids, they're just going out and getting estimates.
And
Again, if I get to, if $50,000 is a big, I wasn't expecting $50,000 for audio visual, but I'm getting told that that's not a bad price. So I talked to Mike McCotchis from the school district who deals with this a lot, and he said, honestly, that's not a bad price. But again, I haven't got the other estimates. So I'm just giving you kind of an update.
yeah, I could recommend them.
Yeah, give me whoever you want, because this is the time to do it, because the walls are open.
Yeah, yeah.
When the walls are open, it's much easier to do.
There's this guy in Poughkeepsie, A&R, he's pretty good.
And then we also got to look at security. We haven't even talked.
A&R is providing us an estimate for the video camera system.
A&R what?
A&R is providing us, they're working on an estimate.
Oh, they are? Pat Rose?
A&R and Precision Security, and I'm probably going to contact DBED.
Yeah, D-Ben we use down at the train station and stuff. So, and we're trying to use local guys, of course, if we can. I'm just throwing out what we're kind of getting back from word of mouth and some of the estimates that I've gotten, but nothing's final yet, but I want to give you guys an update. And then as I get all the estimates, that's when I'll give you the numbers. I don't want to give you one here, one there, one there, but I do want to give you not shock you when you get those numbers, that, like when we get Brandy's numbers. When we get Brandy's numbers, then we're all shocked, something. It's not, Brandy's good. But that's where we're at with Tomback. It is moving forward. The highway guys are, I don't know if you noticed when up there, we are going to expand the parking lot a little and make it actually squared off because it came to a triangle. They're actually doing some of that work for us, clearing the property, and they're actually going to be pouring the pads for the generator that's going to have to go outside, and then the air conditioning and heating pumps that go outside. But they're going to do that work, and that'll save us some more money. So that's where we're at with Tomback. Again, as I said, over the last few meetings, we're moving forward, but slowly. My goal is for July for this to be open. That can be ambitious at this point, but I'm pushing for July. It all depends on this Carpenters Union issue that we're having with the WND. So I do want to let you and the public know there has been a delay on that part. Okay? Other than that, I'm not going to talk anymore. There's a lot of other things that are going on, but I'll save that for the next meeting. So what I'm going to do is go into presentations, which is Brandy Nelson, if you could come up to the podium, and then if the board has questions, let me bring up your agreement. All right, where are we? Next, pilot agreement. All right. North Pier. So you guys know in the previous meetings that we received a $72,000 estimate for the damage of the pier and a $164,000 estimate for code book updates, which we're going to make the pier ADA compliant with the same type of walkway that goes out to the pier that now is really ADA compliant. We had that in our insurance and we fought for it. Brandy helped us out. The code enforcement officer helped us out writing letters, and the insurance company agreed to that. In those numbers are engineering costs, so some of that's already in there. Again, we can go back and ask for more money if it comes higher than when we put it out to bid. It's not guaranteed, but we do have more in our insurance policy than what we're seeing here. It's just that this is what their estimator estimates that the rebuild would cost. And that's all based on assumptions, and I think that's what Brandy will speak to tonight, is assumptions that all the pylons are still in good shape, and that when we rip off the top layer and all the wood structure that's on there, that we don't find like what we found on the south pier. All the middle parts of the wooden pylons were rotted out. So we're assuming they're good. We know that that north pier has been overbuilt, right? Mm-hmm. But,
Right.
so you see her estimate is not to exceed $75,500. And Brandy, I'm going to bring it up here. If you want to speak about the necessity of possibly having the divers and
Sure.
the pylons, because I think that's a big knot of the $75,000.
Yeah.
It's about $30,000 of it, right?
There are 6 separate tasks, so I think it's helpful to understand the full cost if we can run through those 6 separate tasks. This feels very loud. Is it very, very loud?
I just disconnected. That's not a good thing, so that's not good. Let me get back in here. Technology, you gotta love it.
Do you want me to go ahead while you're bringing that up, or do you want me to wait?
Sure.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Sure. So we prepared a proposal for services for repair of the North Pier fire damage. As the supervisor alluded to, the way it worked out with the insurance company was that there's 2 different fund sources for those repairs. One is just to repair what was damaged by the fire. And the other, when you do a rebuild, you typically have to bring a structure up to code. And in this case, code included ADA improvements. So that would be the gangway that goes from the park out to the pier is currently not ADA compliant. So after much back and forth, thanks to all parties who were involved, because it was a lot of negotiating with the insurance company, the insurance company agreed that, yes, there does need to be an ADA improvement there. So when we did the initial post-fire assessment, we did what's called an above-water inspection, so everything that we could see above the water level. And we went out at low tide so we could see as much of the structure as possible. During that inspection, because the pier was built in the 1950s, it's lived a nice long life. And so there were a couple different categories of condition assessment that we did. One was ADA deficiencies, one was fire damage, and the third was just things that were old and not in great shape because of the age of the structure. So we wanted to be reasonable in the approach to assessing the condition of that structure. So with those 3 categories, we had come up with an estimate, which with the back and forth with the insurance company resulted in the preliminary estimate from the insurance company on what the value is for the repair of the structure. But in talking with the supervisor, what we would recommend as a first task before we begin designing the repairs is to do an underwater inspection of that pier. What we noticed at our above water inspection was that there were a couple of piles, particularly closer to the shore, that have what's called section loss. So, they're cylindrical piles. They're missing, in some cases, up to 80% of their section. And they then lack the structural capacity to be supportive structures anymore. So, given our experience with the South Pier and our observations at the North Pier, we'd recommend that that first task be an underwater inspection. We contract with a diving company, and we've contacted 3 different diving companies here in the area and gotten quotes from them. They would come with a crew. One of our engineers would be present at the time of the inspection, conducting the inspection above water and giving guidance and direction for the underwater portion of the inspection. The divers go down all the way down to the bottom of the river, and on the river side, it's up to 45 feet deep at that location, so it drops off very steeply there. They would inspect the condition of the piers at the riverbed, make sure things are stable, and, well, they would tell us what the condition is, so I don't want to presume to know what the condition is. From that, then, that would help inform the repairs, because what we found with the South Pier was that when we started dismantling The pier, because it has so many different structural members holding it together, as we started pulling the pickup sticks apart, the whole thing became less stable. So its complexity right now gives it some additional stability. So that's the first test. That's $14,000. From there, we'd be able to use that information to refine the design. And then the design would be broken out into the two categories, the fire damage repairs and then the ADA improvements. That's $28,000. The design would include preparation of bid specs. We anticipate this will exceed your procurement requirements, and so you'd need to do a public bid on this, be a prevailing wage job. So we'd have bid phase services to do the public bid. And then once you contract with a selected contractor, we would provide construction, observation, construction administration services, including field observations, review of contractor pay requests, review of contractor RFIs and submittals, things of that nature to bring the project to its final closure. We're also anticipating some coordinating with you and town staff supervisor on the reimbursement from the insurance company. There'll be a little back and forth there.
You guys got any questions? I mean, it's kind of straightforward, but do you have questions? All right, James, you could ask a question if it's quick.
The survey, does that include photographs or video?
It includes video.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Nobody? So this proposal, just, so this proposal would be something I'll be asking you to sign so we could get this process moving. Again, this is up to 75.5. I mean, how Titan Bond bills us is by hourly rate, and that's an agreement we already have in place with them. They're already one of our engineering firms assigned by reorg, so they're on our list of engineers, and we have a rated schedule. So these numbers are based off of those rated numbers, an estimate. So it can't go more than 75, but it could be less than 75, right? So depends on where we're at.
Unless that inspection comes back a lot worse than you anticipate, right?
The inspection
Then this
comes
could
back
go
a
the
lot
other way.
worse, 100%. Then we gotta go back to the insurance company and see if we have a claim to get it. Now, the only issue with that is, my opinion would be,
Probably not, because it's age
if it's
related.
rot on the pylons, that's natural wear, so they probably won't cover it. So it would be, I mean, either way, we gotta know, right? We can't have people.
So I have a question. So isn't this pier overbuilt to begin with?
So how the pier is ultimately used really informs how it's designed. So currently it's a fishing platform. And so the load to the structure is really people standing on it fishing. And then there are some what are called lateral loads from ice moving by in the wintertime. But to your point, I think, if we're not incorporating this into a tie-off for the boats that are coming up, it doesn't have to be as heavily built as it does if we're going to use it as a tie-off, right?
So what standards do we use if we're going to use it as a tie-off? Like, is it still, even if there was a little rot on the outside, would it still be compatible or no?
We would check, so part of what we'll do with the dive is check for the pile section loss, and you can lose a certain percentage and not lose the structural stability. If you lose too much, then yeah, we would be talking about pile
And they'll be
replacement.
able to tell by the video.
That's why we'd like to do the video, yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
So this is the structure of the timbers. So are you gonna replace the timbers, or are you gonna repair them?
Yep, so right now, what we're anticipating is only replacing the timbers that are around the top that were damaged by the fire.
Okay.
Yeah, the above water inspection didn't show, in the area of the fire, did not show any significant section loss to the columns, the piles that are the vertical structural members.
So that's intact?
That's, say that again?
That's intact, the vertical.
Correct, yeah, at least from what we could see above water. We just want to make sure it's the same condition below water as
So-
well.
So the timber there on top, they're horizontal, that hold the platform is what you're discussing. You're saying has a budget value of $75,000? Is that what you're saying?
So the design item number 2, the timber pier repairs, 23,000. That is for the design of the top portion of the platform.
Okay, so
That's the whole engineering of it, Manny. So like,
That's-
to engineer the whole platform,
Oh, so this
to repair it.
Okay.
And then the 6,000 is for the gangway that we're looking, or the 5,000.
5,000
sorry,
for the
is
gangway,
for
yeah.
the gangway, which will be hopefully almost the
Sim-
same
yeah.
looking as the one that's on the south pier, but not as wide.
Correct, yeah,
But
that's the
It'll be
intent.
matching, and then you have to put a cement pad and all the same thing, but, the only thing I would say is, I know when we met down there, I know you said maybe that the underwater inspection was gonna be $5,000, so that's why I was a little, taken back a little, I would say, on the
Yeah.
$14,000 number.
Yeah.
So is there a reason why it's so much money for that?
When we got the 3 quotes back, basically everyone is doing a 3-person dive team, and when you get 3 divers out on a site, it's expensive. So it's given the channel condition right there. That's what they felt was necessary.
And if we forego that inspection, what would that, I mean, we wouldn't know until we ripped the whole decking off. Is that kind of?
Well, so, I mean, at this point, the intent of doing the inspection is really to let you know how much flexibility you have for how that structure could be used long-term.
And our discussion, if we wanted to make it a little bigger, a little longer,
Right.
we got to know what it, and if there was a possibility for a tie-off of a boat.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the other part of it is a sort of a pragmatic thing in terms of, you're going to invest $250,000 into repairing it and providing ADA access. Do you want to make sure what's underwater is also in good condition?
I'm just scared to find it. I mean, I
Don't look.
I mean, it's like, because I remember the last time we did this, and I know Supervisor Lanzetta came back and he was like, oh, boy, I almost wished I didn't know, but we do know. And then we had to go with the steel pylons, and the numbers changed and everything, so it kind of affected us. My thing is, obviously, this would come out of now the taxpayers' pocket to do that, and we know how expensive those pylons can be. But, I mean, what is the board, I would assume, would want to know what we're dealing with here?
I think we have to know, and I think the worst-case scenario is you use it as a fishing dock if it's going to be too much money.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that principle. Yeah, I mean, at least if you do the dive inspection, if you've got flexibility to use it as part of the boat berthing operation that's happening down there in the fall. If it's in bad shape and we just say we don't want to touch it, we're just going to leave it as is, then yeah, then it stays a fishing platform.
Okay. Anybody else have an opinion on that, or? Good? All right. Well, I'm going to ask for a motion that I sign this proposal so we could start moving forward on the project,
I'll make a motion to sign a
get
proposal.
going on it. I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thanks, Brandy.
Thank you.
I'll get
We'll
it
be
to you
in-
tomorrow, all right?
Okay, we'll be in touch.
I appreciate it, thanks. Okay. Where's all my stuff? I got too many things open. Okay. Comments on the agenda. At this point, anybody have any comments on the agenda? Mark?
Is that a good question? Will that be on the website?
What?
That presentation is on the website?
The one that Brandy's thing? Yeah. Yeah, Danielle, when Danielle does all her minutes and everything, it'll be posted up there.
But is it now posted or not yet?
Hers? No, just to us, to the town board it was sent. Yeah, I'll send it to you tonight. Yeah, not a big deal. Yep. Anybody else? All right. Any new business by the board? Anybody have anything else you want to bring up tonight for future meetings, or we're all set? Nobody else? Okay. So then let's get to our workshop, which is our planning board, town board open discussion. I always think these are a good session to have, because we as a board might be thinking we're doing everything right with our codes and everything else, and the planning board are the ones that have to deal with it. So more of this, to me, is for you guys to tell us what you want. Obviously, if anybody on our board has a question for the planning board, do it, but I assume the planning board has possible questions for us. So I'm going to open it up. This is open discussion. Just don't go too long, but yes, open discussion. And I know James is at the bit over here. Go ahead, James.
Well, I think that the planning board has diverse personalities and representations, and we don't always agree on everything. I was certainly happy that there was some agreement with the concept of recommending as an option that when we have a public hearing on a site, that a aerial photo showing the location of the site be added. This is an optional thing for them to do, because one of the things that we found was that people were coming to the board public hearings and had no idea where the project was, and once they saw where the project was, they didn't really care about it, but they had gotten a notice because they were within 500 feet. And I think that's going to happen again, particularly when we have a project on one side of Route 9W and the people on the other side may have no interest at all in attending that kind of meeting. But that's something that when you have a public meeting that deals with a project, you may want to think about making that as a optional thing for them to do also. Because I think that has a broad use, not only for the planning board, but maybe the town board, maybe even the ZBA, to help reduce, people having to come in and.
So you're saying when you have a public hearing, there's no visual? Is that what you're asking for them?
No, what happens is people get a notice
Right.
saying that, you're within 500 feet and this is the,
Yep.
the section, lot, and block, et cetera. And they come in to see what it's all about. They want to know what it's all about. And a lot of times people will come in and they are so far removed from the site, whether it be on the other side of Route 9W, that they're not interested because they're not directly adjacent to it, that
I see what you're saying.
they
So
really
are you
don't-
suggesting that when they send out the notices, that
Yes.
there's some information in there,
yes.
what's going on?
That may mean fewer people will come to the meeting, which makes the meetings go faster and is also good for the applicant. So the applicant pays for an extra piece of paper to be mailed, but on the same hand, there are fewer people coming to the public hearing. And the people that do come, very often the first question is, where is this? Okay?
Right.
Because they can't tell from the description of what is sent out without them doing
So let me
so.
ask you a question. Is it not a fact that when I get a letter in the mail from a property that's being developed within 500 feet of my property, don't I have the option to contact either Scott or someone on the planning board and ask questions before they come to the meeting? Because I get people ask me questions all the time in the deli every morning.
Well,
I get letters, they'll come up and approach me and say, well, where is this spot? Where is this spot? If I can help them out, I do. But, I mean, if people are that concerned, they could probably go out of their own way. And I mean, the town hall is open.
They can actually go to the website, because
There you go.
all of the material is on the website. So they could actually go there and see the plan and all the documentation,
I think
which
we
is
do. I
which
think
is
we do enough
posted
already.
before the public hearing, but
Yeah,
they
I mean,
don't.
We're pretty good with having
I
stuff
think
on
we
the
do enough
website.
already. I mean, I don't want to make it,
I think, I'm sorry. Oh
No,
my
go
God,
ahead.
that's loud.
It's an optional thing. It's something that if they want to do, they can do it. If they don't want to do it, it's not in the code. It's not required. So we just leave them as a option that if they want to do it, they can do it.
James, I think you started out in the beginning differently than where you're ending up right now. What we hadn't done in the past was put the public hearing on the website. That's what we're doing now. We're putting that on the website with all the other information. I think that's where you kind of got disconnected somehow in this conversation with them. So that is going on the website now.
So
Yeah, all that information, well, it's been on the website for a while.
in the,
No,
in
it
the,
just
in the notice
started.
in the notice to the landowners, is there something there that says go to the website and look at this, or is there something in there that says that?
It says that it can contact me. It has my
So
name
it just
and
says it
phone
could
number.
contact you, but could we put in there that basically, like, you could go to the Town of Marlborough website and blah, blah, click on the link and you could see everything about this? I mean, maybe it's just a little added thing. Maybe, obviously, we don't want to put full-blown pictures and plans and everything into
But that's
a-
already on there.
It's-
Everything that's given to the planning board is PDF and is put on the website.
No, I know it's on the website, but not in a certified letter. What James is saying, when they get a certified letter, they don't know what it's about. So they come to the meeting and that's when they find out.
Yeah, the idea is, an 8.5 by 11, just showing a general location.
No, that's a
Something
good
that's
idea.
something, and this is, by the way, required that they have to do this anyway
Yeah.
as part of the application, so it's nothing new that they actually have to create. But your idea of actually putting the URL on the public hearing notice is a good idea.
So you're telling me, Jen, that when we sent these notices, there's no description of why we're sending them the notice?
There's,
It's like,
It states
for,
on
you
there
know,
that
it
there's
said
a
notice
public...
for a subdivision or notice
Yes, it does
for
say that.
amendment
It
for-
says that there's a notice for a subdivision. It gives the SBL number, it gives the address.
So
the
you-
applicant's name.
You do have a description of that, right?
Yes,
yeah, but still,
Yeah.
On the notice that they get when they sent it out to all.
right.
to
But
five
now
hundred.
they
But-
want,
but
board
still-
wants to add the photo of the project too now with that.
Can I?
yeah, they still show up, even with all that information on the notice, they still show up and ask, where is this and exactly what are you doing? So this at least gives them an idea of where it is. And that's what you can eliminate is some of the people.
I think you're still going to
coming.
get those people.
You'll get some of
people
them.
just don't want to do the work.
Yes.
You know, I think Jim started out the conversation with, that we have internal discussions about these things going on. I know Steve has been especially vocal about, how can we make the process of sending out a lot of these certified letters and stuff less onerous to the property owners, especially if they're in a more urban-type setting where there's a lot of letters that have to go out. But I have to say that these things are in discussion phase amongst the board. The board is not unified as to, making recommendations at this point to the town board. And I'm sorry to see that Chris isn't here because I know he normally reports back to you about our discussions and keeps you up to date.
Yeah,
on
he's
a-
good. Chris is
Yeah,
very
he is. He is very good. So I just wanted to clarify that these are things that we have been talking about. So, James, did you have other things?
I do have other things, but I think it's important to realize that, you're always welcome to come and sit and listen to our discussions, and there's back and forths and agreements with
Well,
some things.
Part of it is Chris gives us such good reports that we could save one of our Monday nights. We don't, we trust you. But he does give us very good reports, which is very detailed, which is really good. But I know I've heard about the certified letter. I've heard both sides of it. I do agree, like what you say, when you're in more urban areas, it does become more onerous on the applicant, right? If you're in so many feet and now you have a whole city around you, it's crazy, right? So maybe there is something that could be looked at in those situations. But
Yeah,
like if you're out in, up on Mount Zion or something like that, and there's only so many households in that vicinity, then it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah,
But I do agree, when you're in a city atmosphere or in the hamlet area, right, it does become expensive for the applicant, and then you got to make sure everybody gets them, and it's a lot more, but.
Yeah, and having worked in this field for over 30 years for Tim Miller Associates, an environmental planning firm, I've seen municipalities deal with this in 9 different counties in New York and in other states, and they all deal with it differently, and there are pros and cons, and some of them do a much more vigorous attempt to inform the public. But with everything you do, that costs the applicant. But on the other hand, the applicants do not want to get caught in this cycle of having problems with people being properly notified, because that doesn't look good. So when you start looking at signs, you get municipalities that will use those early in the process before you even get to the public hearing. When you make your application, they start putting up signs, and they have informational meetings before you even get to the public hearing. But when you do those things, that's expensive to do.
Well, I agree with you. I think the more the applicant can do pre-planning board, pre-public hearing, is going to go a long, long way for their whole time that they're in the planning board, right? The more you could do up front, the more you talk to the county, the more you talk to the town, the more you understand the process, it's going to make a much smoother process overall. I do agree. I like that we have some of these where you have without the stenographer, without the lawyers present, and some people will come at the end of your meetings and they'll ask questions to get a little guidance before they come in front of you, right? So they're not spending that money. Because it does, it comes quite expensive for some of these applicants. I mean, lawyer fees, attorney fees, stenographer fees, and unfortunately they don't get us their bills right away, and then, then later on we have to hit them up for their escrow accounts, right, Jen? And they're not too happy to have to pay another $5,000. So, but anything we can do to reduce the cost and the time in the planning board, and also do our due diligence and making sure that, we're protecting the town and the taxpayers, is a positive, right? That's our goal. I always look at the planning board's goal as, we're here to help you, but you also got to help yourself, right, too. So it's a fine line. So, but no, I mean, I haven't had any, I just be honest with you, I haven't had any real complaints about the planning board, which has been a lifesaver for me. So, and I know we got a lot of mixed group of people on there, which is actually a good thing. So you have, sometimes it could be frustrating, I'm sure, but it actually is a good thing, because that way you're getting both sides or 3 sides of a story, and you have representation from different viewpoints. So, but I mean, what else you got?
The board has a lot of flexibility, and sometimes they may be going, in my opinion, go too far, and sometimes they may not be going far enough. But
I think they want they want my 3-minute clock. That's all they said. That's I heard about that one too. That's all.
But these are important things, and when we make jumps of leaps of faith, for instance, with the 39 Main Street, to take the idea of putting the commercial parking space on the street and moving to the accessible parking spaces on the street, which made a lot of sense, because when you look at the individual requirements for the parking for the residential and the non-residential, the residential people parking in the back, and the commercial parking on street and in the other lot, it made sense to evenly divide up the accessible parking. But when you look at something like that is certainly a stretch by the planning board, but because the town board is required to look at the design of the road, ultimately you're giving your approval to both that concept as well as the commercial parking concept, which not only serves them, but also serves a lot of the other businesses which are right there, which makes, again, a lot of sense to do that. So I think, the board, without there being a strict code reference to that, can look at things which are requirements necessary and desirable for public safety, health, etc. So we have some latitude, and we sometimes take it for the good of the public.
The thing is, like, in the last so many years, we've been starting to see more building, more investment, more things going on in our town. And I think sometimes you don't know your code is wrong until someone gets in front of you and has a project, and you're like, oh, well, we don't, you know, our code maybe needs to be updated to address these issues. And I think we've seen that already in a few situations. And that's a good thing. That means that we're actually expanding, right? So, and our code, it's a living document. It has to change as times change and things change. And so I think that's a good thing. And I'm glad that the planning board, and I know Chris is very vocal, he brings back all your guys' suggestions to us, and we try to do what you guys ask, because you guys are the ones on the front line, right? So, yes.
But it also comes down to where we live in these communities. We know that pinch point going down Milton Turnpike right there on Main Street. We know that the curb keeps getting broke, turning with the tractor trailers turning at the library.
Yep.
But it's parking. I can't tell you enough how much we need the town board to come up with a possible solution for parking in our hamlets. But we're at that.
You could give me a suggestion, Steve. I'll do it. I've been trying to pick my brain forever to get parking.
I know the Legion Hall is empty all but one time a month. You know, one evening a month. There's parking back there. I know the American Legion has that corner lot right next to Coupart. Maybe we can get 10 more lots, 10 more spots there. I don't know what the answer is. We used to, for St. James, we have that V, or, you know, where everybody turns right where the old, where St. James Church is. People used to park there on Sundays. I don't know what the answer is, but we got to come up with a solution.
So there's three municipal lots right in Marlborough. Supply Captain, the Market, and the Methodist Church. Supply Captain's probably taken up by mostly tenants in the one house and Supply Captain employees, so that leaves about 2 spots. The Market is a disaster, so maybe you could get 6 or 8 cars there, but it doesn't seem like anybody parks there too much. The Methodist Church, I don't know who parks there. You mentioned
we also have in Milton.
I'm talking about Marlborough.
In Milton,
so
we have
like
the parking.
Like Steve said, you got the Legion, and you got the Legion lot up on the corner of White Street. John Alonge and I looked at that.
It's all within walking, and there's
right.
sidewalks.
No, I agree, but the corner of White Street, you're just asking for problems there. Unless you're going to make some sort of entrance exit, I don't know what you're going to do, but that's a hazard.
Right.
So I think that's why that would never work. And behind the Legion Hall, yeah, you're right. I guess you could, you know, it's not any worse getting out of there than it is any other place on Western Avenue. So.
Yeah,
But I think that corner is a problem.
Right.
The planning board actually has the authority to require more parking than the minimum in the code. And when we dealt with the project on Grand Street, Orange, near the firehouse, those developers actually came in with more parking than was required by the code. Certainly the people came out and were complaining, but the code required, I believe, 1.5 spaces, and they were providing 2 spaces per dwelling unit. So the board has a certain amount of power to try to get the developers to provide parking, but it doesn't correct, you can't correct the whole hamlet.
That only works when you can possibly provide more parking. You know, we live in a horse and buggy town. It's been like this for 100 years. It's not going to change. We don't even have proper width sidewalks going through town. You can't create more parking. It's just impossible unless you're going to start buying property and taking buildings down. Right now, if you're opening up a business in the village, you're allowed 5 off-street parking spaces, correct?
Yes.
But we're sharing them with each other. Anybody that has a storefront, you know, I'm sharing my 5 spots with Criccio, and Criccio's sharing his 5 spots with Doc Schenker, and Doc Schenker's sharing his 5 spots with Angelo the baker. I mean, it's just the way the town is. There's no way around it. Unless we're going to.
True.
Well, it's true. And unless you're going to change, unless you're going to buy a parcel, unless you're going to buy Joe Criccio Apartments and put a 3-tier parking garage there.
Yeah, I'm not saying that the planning board can solve this.
No,
okay?
It can't be solved. So I'm saying, unfortunately, for all these years, it is what it is.
I think it's just gotta be, you gotta have a location that's reasonable walking distance to the hamlet that someone or some place is willing to donate or utilize, let the town utilize for public parking.
Well, that
And
won't happen in our
unfortunately, there's not many
lifetime.
like, I know Councilman Baker at the time, and I know other times I've talked to him, has talked about the Presbyterian Church, and they have property there. And it is a vacant piece of property, but I don't know if that's too far removed from the hamlet or not.
So it's probably too far removed from the hamlet for all us native people that have lived here our whole lives. But as the city people are moving north, they walk. You know, so somewhere down the road, it'll work. But right now,
Yeah.
it's not gonna work.
And part of that deals with, whether or not you have sidewalks. And in some places,
Well, that-
you can't,
Well, that's got
you
sidewalks.
can't
We
put them.
actually have sidewalks
Yeah,
there,
we
which
have
is
sidewalks
actually
in prison.
ideal already. That was the reason in thinking
Right.
about it, because there is sidewalks there. The other location in the hamlet of Milton, unfortunately, the Manises own a corner parcel of property that probably could be used for parking down there, that has an old garage on it that,
The old
as
barn.
we all know, looks like it might fall down someday, hopefully not. But it is there. But until they,
It's also not for
maybe
sale.
come to an agreement that that's a usable spot, that's a lot that's sitting right there in the middle of the hamlet, right? But you gotta be able to, the town board can't just pick up property and drop
No,
it
you
down.
can't.
We gotta be able to locate, and I'll tell you though, Mr. Pollock has tried to help us with parking and stuff, and, he's putting a lot of parking, it's mostly for tenants behind that, Main Street project, but he also has other properties there that I keep asking him about if he'll actually utilize, where the old CSX property was, that he knocked the building down, it's just sitting there, the corner lot. He says he has plans to do stuff there, but I know Mr. Kent uses it sometimes, and now it seems to be a turnaround that people use for, but there's like a location right there that could be used. But again, I gotta have the willingness by a landowner to say, can we use that?
Right.
Will you let the town use that? And it's a tricky situation to get that done. But I agree, Steve. I mean, I think any supervisor, any board that's sat up here for probably the last 50 years, it's probably been the number one issue with the hamlets, right? There's no parking. And we're starting to expand, and there's still the same amount of parking. Well, let's take, for example, the Falcon is going to have an issue coming up, right? The Falcon's overflow parking that was passed by the planning board is now bought by another landowner who's going to put a development there. How do we deal with that?
Well, the part of the question I would ask is, when that was approved, was it approved that that parking be dedicated to the Falcon? That's what they do in other communities. When you do that, you basically make an agreement that that parking is dedicated to them as long as they are operating.
I don't know of any agreement that was said like
Well,
that.
whether there was an agreement or not, it's changing ownership.
But it's a new
Somebody bought the place. They don't have to tell them what they
Now,
can do.
having said that, I'm bringing that up because obviously that new owner will probably be in front of you all, I'm hoping within the next month or so, maybe 2 months, whatever. But I mentioned to him right off the bat that that was an issue that would be coming up, and he had said that he would work into his project parking for the Falcon. So I'm giving you that heads up so you could.
He did say that.
You could ask him that. Yes.
Yeah, I was there. He said it.
I think,
Because hey, the Falcon is a big part of his thing to sell those townhouses that he's going to be building. He's trying to sell an environment, and that's part of it, right? And he's going to sell that. He's got a firm that he hired. He's going to be making videos, and he's trying to sell this already to different people, and the part of it is the Falcon. So it's in his best interest to create parking for them. But it is one of those things that, talking about parking, that, as Dave said, this one's borrowing parking from this one, that that was one of those situations, right?
Well, it's a catch-22. I mean, here's the thing. Do you want to increase businesses? Do you
Of
want to
course.
prosper? Do you want to
Of
grow?
course.
We don't have parking. Okay, so like I said, so you share parking. People will find a way. People, maybe you and I don't want to walk to a restaurant 6
no.
blocks away, but people will start doing it sooner or later.
No, yeah.
It's either that or you're gonna have a key bank and a deli in town,
Of
and that's
course,
it.
you got to.
And if key bank closes, you won't have the deli anymore either, so.
I don't have to tell the chief, but on the weekends, you could go to the hamlet, you'll see parking everywhere and anywhere they can find a spot.
Yeah.
It's probably not ideal, but it works right now. And now, as we expand, it might become a little more difficult. So, it's just things to think about, so.
As part of disclosure, I will mention that when Dockside came before the town in the early 2000s, my firm was working on that. We are not working on that
Yep.
now. But as a matter of disclosure, I wanted to let
I know, you're
it
good.
clear that we had worked on that at one time, but are no longer working on that project.
Yep, I appreciate that.
I want to commend the board for working with local town businesses to increase the opportunity for people to park within the hamlets. I think a lot of work has been done, and it's been the goodwill of the business owners, to allow the use of their parking for other people, which is really a good way to approach this for the time being. But there are a couple things that I wanted to bring up, because I'm also the town's representative on the county planning board. And two things have come to my attention that the board might want to be aware of and be thinking about possibly working on. And one is our short-term rental code. I don't know if the board's aware, but there's been changes in the law, and any code that imposes residency requirements will no longer be defensible. So I think we need to take a look at that. I'm not sure if the board wants to put together, a combined committee to kind of work together. The zoning, planning, and town board members sit down and go over it again, maybe meet with the county and see if there's codes in Ulster County that perhaps might be more in compliance that we could emulate, and try to get something that would be defensible, because right now we're liable for that with our present code. And then the other thing that's coming down is affordable housing. And we're starting to get a number of multifamily projects in. We've actually passed a number of them, and so we've kind of, that horse kind of got out of that barn. But going towards the future, we might want to think about having some kind of minimal requirement for multifamily housing. It seems like the most common number that other communities is using is 10%, but we might want to think about, talking to we talk to them about it, but if we had it in our code, we could say, we'd like to have 10% of the housing be workforce housing, so that our teachers, our volunteer firemen, the people who really aren't making the big bucks but are very important to our community would have a little more affordable places that they can rent or purchase, or however the multifamily housing is set up. And a lot of times the developer, you can say, okay, instead of the granite countertops, they can have Formica, or, they don't have to be these 10% of the housing. Doesn't have to be top of the line, it doesn't have to be done with the same materials as the rest of the multifamily housing, but just so that it's a place where we can integrate this workforce housing, and it's really getting to be a problem in the Hudson Valley. So that's something that you might want to take a look at as well in our code.
Yeah, Councilwoman Sester and I had a meeting with Dennis Doyle about their initiative that they're having through the county to get municipalities, obviously, to codify what you're talking about. And, at this time, we talked about it a few times. The only problem I have with it, I told them, well, there's two things. And I think the governor's actually looking at doing this as statewide. I don't know if she's going to legally be able to do it, but in my opinion is if one community does it and another sister community doesn't, when that businesses or investor comes, they might go to the other community because they don't have it. Now, if everybody's on the same playing field, I would agree, okay, everybody's got the same requirement, then what's the best location to go is, you know, wherever you want to go. But if, say, my sister's community doesn't, they might go there instead. So that's one thing that I wouldn't like about putting it in the code. And secondly, I asked Dennis this, and they said no as of yet. Is there an incentive back to the developer from a pilot agreement or some kind of a tax break that they could ask the county to put into, like if we're going to do these things, that they could give this developer on a small scale for the 10% of housing, which they're asking for 20%, but 10 or 20%, I think the developer should ask for something. It's not, as you know, it's not cheap to build these developments anymore, and I agree that you could make the other apartments not to the top scale, but a lot of builders that I've spoken to, that's not what they want to do. They're selling a development as this type of development, and so they don't want to say, well, yeah, but 10% of it is this, just don't go over there, right? It's not like, they don't want to do that. They want to build it as one type of unit. And a lot of them all say they wouldn't have a problem doing it if I got a tax break, right? So, because I would still build it to that scale, but if I got a tax break of a pilot agreement of some sort, then I can afford to lose that amount of rent because I'm making it up on the other end. So I think if they combine something with that and actually doing it statewide, I think it's something that can be done. I just think it gives you an unfair disadvantage if you have it compared to other municipalities that don't have it. That's just my opinion. I'm not saying that's everybody's opinion. That's just my opinion. So, but at this point, I don't know. I mean, we talked about it a few times. I don't know what you think about.
One of the other things, if I can interrupt you, is some municipalities give a density bonus.
Yep.
And that is one thing that you can give the developer to help persuade him.
Yeah, Dennis,
I'm not saying that you have to make these decisions this evening. I just wanted to call them to your attention since we had the opportunity to speak with you.
Yeah, we definitely, we met with Dennis. We had a good meeting for about an hour and discussed it. And there is a bunch of communities that are doing it, not everyone in the county. I'm kind of curious how the governor's request is going to be taken at the legal level, if she has the authority to, I guess, override local law, but we'll see.
I got another one. Can we talk about at the completion of projects, who's responsible? I know our town code enforcement officer, when he gives the building permit, he goes out and makes sure everything's finished so he can give a CO. But from the planning board's point of view is that we require so many trees planted, shrubs planting, that the parking lots be marked with handicap. But if a project gets a CO in December and they only had the base course put down to the asphalt, and now the asphalt plants are closed, who's following up in the spring to make sure that all the other items are completed from the requirements of the planning board?
I would say the short answer right now is nobody, right? Because the code enforcement officer, after he gives the CO, is signed off, right? Well, the long answer is possibly we should look at, in my opinion, I would think it would be Mr. Hines or one of the engineering, or it could be someone on the planning board themselves that is wanting to take on that. I don't know, but I don't know. As far as I know, I don't think anybody goes back and checks, are trees planted or these things.
There's two ways I think that a lot of municipalities do it. One is that they have their town engineer go and actually inspect it, which costs money
Yeah.
of the applicant.
The
The other thing is that the engineers or the professionals who do the as-built plans, those are supposed to be as-built, okay? One would think that they, in signing those as-built plans, are certifying that they are correct. So the other way is to make it very clear that they are required to make sure that everything is built. And believe me, they are putting their professional licenses and their reputations on the line, and they will want to make sure that things are properly built, because they don't want it getting around that they're doing a bad job and possibly having their license pulled if someone actually gets hurt. So that is, I think, something which I argue with the planning board, saying that we have the authority to make sure that the applicant's professionals are making sure that everything is where it is supposed to be. Now, when it comes to things like trees, you know, you don't want to be planting trees in December, although I have seen municipalities that have required that and then required them in the spring to replant them, which is, in my opinion, crazy. But I think that this is something that is another option, that if you want to make sure that it is done properly, and then maybe if you want to have some spot inspections by our engineer and have the applicant pay for those, then that would be, you know, another option. But I think that, to me, is something that's within the purview of the planning board under reasonable conditions that they can apply to a site plan. I think that's a reasonable
Are you suggesting that we
condition.
keep the escrow account open then? For 6 months, a year, you know,
Well,
what is a reasonable
We
time?
do usually keep it open for quite a long, we have some that are open still to this day that are 10 years old, so, and more. So, but, yeah, the problem is this, is once, like I said before, once you get a CO and once you get that signature,
You're done.
you're
You
almost,
can give
it's
a-
so hard.
There's no reason that a temporary certificate of occupancy can't be, you know, given until all the things are in place. And it's, you know, we spoke with our legal advisor, and she believed that this inspection, the last inspection, was in the purview of the zoning enforcement officer. And in New York State Town Law, Section 274A, under 16.7, it says, "The zoning officer shall be responsible for the overall inspection of site improvements, including coordination with the planning board and other officials and agencies as appropriate, as part of the final giving of all, you know, the approvals." So I'm not quite sure why we are talking about adding additional expenses to the applicants when it seems to me that this should be done, and if there's some reason that it can't be done in a timely manner, that the temporary certificate of occupancy be used.
Yeah, I mean, I can look into it.
Yeah, the other issue is that if they don't do something, then they're actually in violation of the site plan. So they can be in violation, and their site plan could be pulled, which pulls their C of O. So there's good reason for them to comply.
Yeah, I mean, I get what happens, like what you said and Steve said, sometimes it's the middle of the winter, they don't get the final asphalt down, they don't plant a tree, 6 months goes by, and then everybody forgets about it, right?
Well, I know, Bobby, I'm sure you heard from Mr. Tronsolito about the fire trucks not being able to get through because one area wasn't finished being paved,
Right,
which, that's a hazard.
right. But it's the middle of the winter, there's no plant open, right?
Can we have some kind of, like a retainer until the work is done? Hold the retainer?
Well, they have
on that?
escrow accounts that are set up.
If there's an escrow account, so they can't get their final retainer
For,
until...
for large projects, we have the ability to bond for the improvements. We can request a bond or a certificate. So that, I don't think this is really something that has to be an issue with large projects, because that's certainly within it's part of our responsibilities. And in fact, you guys are the ones who determine the numbers for the bonds for those improvements.
Yep.
So that gets thrown back to you guys. But we're talking, I think, about smaller site plans that just don't seem to get the final requirements done that were conditions of their approval, and yet they're operating. And so that's been a concern.
And I think that the question here is not whether or not it should be done. It's who is going to be doing it. Is it the
that's the
inspector?
question.
Is it the engineer? Is it their
Yeah, I get it.
engineer?
That's the question to be had. Who is the responsible person to do it? So I have it on my list, and we'll try to figure it out. Anything else? Or are we good?
I just want to tell you that the planning board is in the process of looking at the subdivision regulations, and there's certainly going to be some changes there. For instance, just a very simple change. The code says that the applicants have to provide 7 copies. The checklist says 12, and what we really want is 12. 7 probably dated back to when we had a 5-person board and no engineers or professionals on the board.
Yep.
But that's just one very simple example of a change.
Well, I know you've been working on the checklist for a long time, right? So thank you for doing that work, because it's tedious.
This hopefully will be, well, it's not going to be the last one.
Don't say the final,
But-
don't say.
But I am surprised that we have not seen more of the short-term rental projects come before us, and I'm not sure why that is. But I expected to see a lot more of
Well, as
those.
Cindy said, the county's looking into it. They see people not reporting correctly that they are short-term rentals, and they have a deal with Airbnb, and, they see a lot of lost revenue. So I know they're looking into it right now. That there's a lot of things going on in Ulster County with short-term rentals, and
What was the question? Why aren't we seeing more short-term rentals?
Why
in
we're
the
not
town?
seeing
Why
more.
you're not seeing them come before the board? Is that what the question was?
Wasn't really a question, more a comment, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of, I was just surprised. I thought we were going to see a lot more of these applications than we've seen.
They're flying under the radar.
that's what I was getting.
They
at.
have been doing it for years. They're not going to change. Why would you?
And the trendiness of
You're not going to
Airbnb
come in
kind
here and
of
say, I want to pay more taxes.
came back down.
Well, I'm getting at is, I don't know if everybody is coming to the planning board, as the county's realizing people aren't reporting that they're doing certain things, and then we got to get a better handle on it. I'm just curious to see what the county's investigation comes back fully, because I just got an email about it just last week, so it piqued my curiosity. I sent it to the board, so, but you're right, James, we pass these codes, we pass these laws, and hopefully they make sense to everybody, but what you have to do is get people to comply, right, and come in. Unless someone, neighbor, this is like we talked about, I think, earlier, right, Jerry? It's like self-policing, like the neighbors are going to be policing this. If someone's showing up at someone's house next door differently every day or every other day, you would eventually think someone would report it to the police, to the code enforcement officer, or to the town. But we have not got any of those calls, so, but, yeah.
But if they do complain and the property owner comes in, we want to have something that's defensible.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Right.
And so we
Yeah, I know the
really
part
need
about
to-
the residency thing was a big thing. It came up at the county, and I know they specifically talked about Marlborough about that, so, and, yeah, so I looked into that too, so there might be some changes we have to make there, so.
I'm going to leave some simple paperwork on that, and
Sure.
you guys can take a look at it.
Thank you.
Good.
We're good? Jen's good? All right, let's move on then. Thank you guys for coming in.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. And if anything you ever need, just send emails or let Chris know and he'll send the email. So it's been working pretty good. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you. All right, correspondence. I'm going to go on to number 11. Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you.
All right, I got here one from rental of the Town Park Pavilion, September 24th, 2023. The Marlborough American Legion Post 124 is requesting the rental fee be waived September 4th, 2023. Anthony Pascal, Bruce Parkton, Paul Epstein, Ken Brooks, and Ed Pross approached Post 124 with the idea of having an event, Marlborough Vietnam Veterans Appreciation Day, including their families on September 24, 2023. Post 124 has agreed to sponsor the event and help plan the activities. The date has been scheduled with the town clerk's office. Respectfully, Tom Schroeder, Commander, Marlborough American Legion 124. So the American Legion is asking us to waive the fees for the park on September 24th.
I'll make that motion to waive the fees.
I have a second.
Yeah, I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Kyle, you got that, right?
Yes, it's taken care of.
Okay. Marlborough Free Library. It's from New York Town Board. The Marlborough Free Library strives to provide access to information opportunities for lifelong learning for the 13,256 individuals residing within the Marlborough Central School District. Through dynamic program, the library has the ability to connect its partners and resources that engage, educate, and empower. A vital element of program is providing access to live presenters and performances. The library's most popular family performance over the years has been Jester Jim. Jester Jim is a family entertainer that juggles jokes and gets the whole crowd to participate in fun, wholesome entertainment. His beloved performance has become highlight each year of the library's summer reading program. Previously, the library had hosted his show in the children's section of the library. The limited size of the audience, which was limited size audience, which required the library in the past to turn away families due to reaching the building maximum capacity. Last year, in order to accommodate the larger interest, the library tried hosting Jester Jim on a side lawn, but due to extreme heat and lack of shade, Jester Jim had to end his show early. The number of families that attended these performances had increased vastly, and the library can no longer accommodate such numbers. The community benefits from wonderful family shows, and Jester Jim delivers it all. The Marlborough Free Library respectively requests that the town of Marlborough allow Marlborough Free Library to use the Cluett Chance Memorial Park Pavilion on August 1st, 2023, from 5 to 7 p.m., free of charge, to present Jester Jim to our community. This program will be free of charge to any family who wishes to attend. Thank you, Christina Jenrich, Director of Marlborough Free Library. So that's for the August 1st, 2023, and you got that in the book, Kyle, as it's available?
I'll make a motion to let Jester Jim have the Cluett Chance Park at no charge.
And you're going to be front row?
Does he wear a clown costume or something?
I don't know. But I think you should be right in the front row.
I'll be there.
There it is. You look at him, Jester Jim.
He looks cool.
He looks pretty funny. So, all right, I need a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. And of course, we cannot go out of meeting from Jerry. My resignation letter from Kevin Coronel. Chief Kokoza, I have recently been offered a full-time police officer position in the town of Poughkeepsie Police Department, and I accepted it. I deeply appreciate the opportunity you gave me hiring me as one of your officers. I enjoyed every second of serving this community and gained great experience. I will take that experience I've gained and utilize it from the future endeavor. Again, as always, thank you and best wishes to you in the town of Marlborough. Respectfully, Kevin V. Coronel. Oh, well, Jerry, and Kevin's gone now too. We train them, we get them good, and Poughkeepsie steals them on us. But thank you, Kevin, for your service, though. we're going to have 2 new guys very shortly, right, Jerry, hopefully? Yep. And now we have public comments. Anybody have any more public comments? Or we're going to move right into resolutions. All right, resolutions, and this is the maintenance bond security, kind of just what Cindy was talking about. We set the maintenance bonds and we lower the maintenance bonds as projects are completed. So, this one is for, I call it Meadowview, but it's actually Vista Meadowview Estates. This is off of Ridge Road. So, Resolution 46, to establish the amount of maintenance bond and maintenance security. Supervisor Cork proposes the following, whereas the Vita Meadowview Estate subdivision was approved by the Town Marlborough Planning Board in November 2006. And whereas a condition of subdivision approval, the developer was required to provide a performance bond and security acceptable to the town for completion of subdivision improvements. And whereas by resolution dated May 11, 2020, the Town of Marlborough Town Board approved the amount of security fixed at $161,000. Whereas the developer provided the required security by a letter of credit in the amount of $161,000, which has since expired. And whereas a condition of subdivision approval, the developer was required to provide a maintenance bond and security acceptable to the town for the maintenance of the subdivision road. And whereas the original bonding amount as determined by the town engineer was $866,271, and whereas the town engineer has determined that in accordance with 130/5B of the town code, the amount of the maintenance bond and maintenance security is 10% of the original approved bonding amount, which will equal $86,627. It is hereby resolved that the amount of the maintenance bond and maintenance security is hereby fixed at $86,627, conditioned upon the developer's establishment of an escrow fund with the town to defray the town's costs of engineering and attorney services in connection herewith, with B, in the developer execution and delivery of a maintenance bond and security in form of the substance of the town supervisor and attorney of the town, in compliance with the town code of the town of Marlborough. And this is because they're dedicating the road to the town, so that's why we're reducing.
So we're imposing this $86,000?
Yep, we're reducing the original bond because the road is complete.
Okay.
And we're reducing it down to $86,000 because the road is going to be dedicated as a town road now. So, but we still have a smaller bond on it just in case there's issues that we have to deal with. So by our code, we reduce it down to the 10%, and that's what Pat recommended, that per the planning board procedure and per him inspecting, in this case, he actually did go and inspect the road, that it meets the requirements to be reduced to the $86,627.
Okay, understood.
The foregone resolution was voted upon with councilmen voting, the councilmen should be council people voting as follows.
Seriously, get with it.
They got to get with it, right? But it says councilman, so I have to say councilman voting as follows.
Supervisor Corcoran.
Yes.
Councilman Cowkey.
Yes.
Councilman Zambito.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sessa.
Yes.
Sorry about that, Councilwoman Session. March 27, 23, Resolution 47, proposed the terms of office of the town supervisor to be increased to 4 years. So this is what we talked about in a few previous meetings. What this is doing is just giving the taxpayers of the town the option to voting yes or no, to say if they want to increase the supervisor's term from 4 years, from 2 years to 4 years, and that would take effect on January 1st, 2024, if passed. If not, it stays 2 years. So, Councilman, anybody offered the following resolution? I need a councilperson.
Councilperson
Councilperson.
Sessa.
I'm going to get offered the following resolution, which was seconded by Councilman Zambito, who moved for its adoption, whereas the term of the office of town supervisor is currently 2 years, and whereas the town board of the town of Marlborough deems it to be the best interest of the town to increase the term of office of the town supervisor from 2 to 4 years, and whereas pursuant of town law, section 24-A, the town board is authorized to increase terms of office of the town supervisor to 4 years by adoption of a resolution subject to a mandatory referendum. And whereas adoption of this resolution is a type 2 action requiring no secret review, now therefore it be resolved that the term of office of the supervisor hereby increased to 4 years commencing January 1st, 2024, subject to a mandatory referendum. And be it further resolved that the proposition to increase the term of office of the town supervisor shall be submitted to the electors of the town of Marlborough at the biannual town election held on November 7th, 2023, for the purpose of voting by ballot on the following proposition. Proposition, shall the term of office of the supervisor of the town of Marlborough be increased from 2 years to 4 years commencing January 1st, 2024. And be it further resolved that the change in term of office shall take on January 1st, 2024, if approved by the electors of the town of Marlborough at the biannual election on November 7th, 2023. And be it further resolved that the certified copy of this resolution shall be promptly filed with the Ulster County Board of Elections. And the foregone resolution was voted upon with councilmen voting as follows. Sorry, sir.
Supervisor Corcoran.
Yes.
Councilman Caffey.
No.
Councilwoman Sessa.
Yes.
Councilman Zambito.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, Resolution 48, to authorize payment in lieu of taxes agreement for solar energy system between the town of Marlborough, New York, and Bailey's Gap Solar LLC. So we have a couple resolutions. I know I sent out emails about these, and they're quite confusing as you read through some of their agreements. But these are all follow-ups to the original agreement that was signed in 2020. And so now that they're actually starting to build this year, these are the follow-up agreements that go with that agreement. So part of that is a pilot agreement. So we're going to have a pilot agreement with them. Currently, we collect no taxes on this property. So it's a small pilot agreement, but they also have to get a pilot agreement with the school district, which is Highland, not Marlborough. That's the school district up by Bailey's Gap. And they also got to get one with the county. So this is our end of it. And I did have, is it not opening now? So this is the, if you wanted to see it, these are what are proposed for the agreements. So the town starts at 1526, and it's a 15-year agreement. And it goes to $2,000.14. So it's not a tremendous amount of money, but that, and then the school district, you could see their numbers here, and the county here. So overall, in the 15 years, it's $26,000, $398 for us, $84,587 for the school, and $12,748.50 for the county. So this is the pilot agreement that's offered to the town. And then you guys have an opportunity to vote on it. If I could get back to our actual thing, okay.
What was that percentage that you're getting back from the usage? You're getting some back, right? I didn't quite.
What do you mean?
From the usage, when they are producing the energy.
So it's a 1.35 megawatt plant, right?
Mhm.
The credits, that's another part of the agreement. That's not this one, but
Oh, okay.
the credit agreement, it's, we could talk about it now, because that's the most confusing one of all of them. So it's 28% of the overall electric that's produced from the plant is a credit that comes onto our accounts. We currently have 23 accounts, so we could distribute that credit to each account individually, like a percentage, or we could take one account, we could take two accounts, and put that whole credit on there. Now, of the 23%, it's a very strange. So it's, no, 28, sorry, 28%. The 28% that we receive in a credit, the town receives 18% of the 28%. So that's what makes it confusing. It's not they get 10%, we get 18. It's 18% of the 28% that we receive to keep as a credit. The other 82%, we have to pay Nextamp for that credit. That's how they make money. So their money is paid through that credit that we pay them back. The other, we're getting 28%, so that means 72% of the other energy that's produced, that pays for the build of the facility, the maintenance of the facility, the upkeep of the facility. So basically what the profit, I would say, that comes out of the whole plant is 28% of the energy. And then how we split it up is the confusing part.
Do we know how much that value is? I mean, it's a credit.
Well, that's a good,
credit.
see, Councilwoman Sesha asked me the same question, and I actually just got that response back. So that's a very good question. And so that the answer to your question is approximately at today's rates, because again, it's based on rates, right? At today's rates, that is about $13,000 a year for the town, for the credit and overall. So not a huge amount of money when you talk about 23 accounts, and we pay a lot of money for electric, but it's $13,000 for that. Then when we get to the lease agreement, it's $3,500 per 1 megawatt produced, so that's about another $4,700 that we get a year, and then we'll be getting $1,500 plus in taxes. So we're getting close to, like, you know, about the $20,000 mark overall when you add up everything.
Scott, when I was questioning this earlier, I was thinking that the percentage to the town was a bit on the low end. But then I noticed in one of our CAC meetings earlier in the year, they note that depending on residential usage, they also expected that 80 to 120 residential customers in the town would also be able to participate in community solar at a discounted rate. Do you know the details on that?
That comes out of that 72% also from the other end?
Okay.
The other end of it, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's an added benefit that's not necessarily quantified in here.
Yeah, so the taxpayers of the town, I think, I don't know, I thought I got something on it in an email already or a
Okay.
flyer on it that said you can participate into this. It's just like any other solar farm that's been created. You could buy those credits direct on your bill, especially like people that really want solar as a source of their electric use. So you can buy that. So it's the same thing. It's like when we're getting credits, they would get credit. And plus it's solar, so it's not, it's good for the environment and all that. And it's being put on a site. It's going to be utilized in about 10 acres, right? And we have about 82 acres up there. So, and it's on top of the actual landfill, so it's not a spot that could ever be used for anything. So it makes use of a non-usable piece of property, I would say. So.
And these percentages are the absolute highest that Nextamp can go on this project, correct? So if the town rejects these percentages, there's no going back to the negotiation table.
No, we already agreed to these terms in 2020. This is just setting up the actual payments of them now. So again, these are like follow-ups to the original agreement. It's just, that's what they are. So, but they have to be passed in order for them to now get their final DEC approvals and get all their banking complete for their loans and all the things that go with it. All these have to be in place on top of the original resolution that was passed in 2020. And again, this all started actually in 2019. 2020 is when it got passed. They were supposed to start in 2020. And of course, we all know what happened in 2020. So they stopped doing it, and the credits weren't there anymore, and now the credits came back. So that's why they were able to move forward with this project. So, and they're going to significantly build out that around that landfill, right? They're going to be putting fencing up, they're going to be putting a road up, they're going to be putting more electrical, they're going to be putting an electrical housing thing there. As you know, there's a resolution about Central Hudson's going to upgrade the poles, but they're also going to upgrade a couple other poles within there that they're just going to replace our old poles. So, but they do need easement on the one that they own. So it should be a good thing. Again, would I like to see more money? Absolutely. But from going to zero to about $20,000 a year, I'll take that too. So,
That's still
So I mean, this is a long, oh, that one's not a long one. I was going to say, well, I'm not going to leave the whole agreement, but, so this is Resolution 48 to authorize the payment in lieu of taxes. This is the pilot agreement for the solar energy system between the town of Marlborough, New York, and Bailey's Gap Solar LLC. Supervisor Corrigan proposes the following, whereas the town of Marlborough, the town, and Nexamp Solar LLC, Nexamp, entered into a certain lease option agreement dated August 20th, 2020. The lease option agreement pursuant which the town granted an option to Nexamp to lease portion of the town-owned real property located at 20 Bailey's Gap Road, Marlborough, New York, described in Exhibit A, annexed to the leased option agreement, the premises. And whereas on May 21st, 2021, the town board granted conditional site plan approval and a special use permit to Nexamp Inc., the parent company of Nexamp at Bailey's Gap Solar LLC, to permit the operation of a solar energy system on the premises. And whereas the terms of the option were modified and the rights of Nexamp under the options were assigned to Bailey's Gap Solar LLC, and whereas Bailey Gap and the town have manifest their intent to enter into an agreement for payment in lieu of taxes pursuant of real property tax law 48.7 Section 9, Section A, the pilot agreement. And whereas the form of the proposed pilot agreement is attached here too, and that was what I was showing you before with all the different numbers. I could bring it pertaining to us. Is these numbers right here. All right. This section. Now therefore, it be hereby resolved to determine the pilot agreement are approved and the supervisors are authorized to execute the pilot agreement is substantially the form attached hereto on behalf of the town or a pilot agreement entered into collectively Bailey's Gap, the town of Marlborough Central, the Marlborough Central School District. No, that's wrong. That should be the Highland Central School District. So we have to update this resolution. That should say the Highland Central School District, so I need a motion to change that in the agreement.
I'll make that motion to change the Highland School to Highland School from Marlborough School.
I'll second.
So approved. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. So the town, the Highland Central School District, and or the County of Ulster, which agreement incorporates the terms of the pilot agreement hereby approved. The foregoing resolution was duly put to vote, which resulted as follows. I'm sorry I didn't miss that, but our attorney wrote this, and he's probably just thinking Marlborough. So, so and moves vote was which resulted as follows.
Supervisor Corcoran.
Yes.
Councilman Cowkey.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sessa.
Yes.
Councilman Zambito.
Yes.
Thank you. And then this is the whole agreement. And Mark, this is online. If you want it, I could send it to you. But it's a lengthy agreement.
He's got it all printed.
Oh, God. And I got the right thing now? Okay. And there's the Exhibit A, again, the numbers. All right. And so this is Resolution 49 to authorize a credit purchase and sales agreement between the town of Marlborough, New York, and Bailey's Gap Solar LLC. This is the one that's confusing, the 28% of the overall and 18% credit we get. Supervisor Corcoran proposes the following, whereas the town of Marlborough, the town, Nexamp Solar LLC, Nexamp, entered into a certain lease option agreement dated August 20, 2020. The lease option agreement pursuant to which the town granted an option to Nexamp to lease the portion of the town-owned real property located at 20 Bailey's Gap Road, Marlborough, New York, described as Exhibit A, annexed and leased option agreement to the premises. Whereas on May 21st, 2021, the town board granted conditional site plan approval of the special use permit of Nexamp Inc., the parent company of Nexamp, Bailey's Gap Solar LLC, to permit the operation of a solar energy system and premises. And whereas the terms of the operation were modified and the rights of Nexamp under the options were assigned to Bailey's Gap Solar LLC, Bailey's Gap. And whereas Bailey's Gap and the town have manifested their intent to enter into a credit purchase and sale agreement, and whereas the form of the proposed agreement is attached here too, and where it is the best interest of the town to enter into the agreement. Now therefore be hereby resolved and the terms of agreement are approved and the supervisor authorized to execute the agreement is substantially the form attached hereto. The foregone resolution was duly put to vote, which resulted in follows.
Supervisor Corcoran.
Yes.
Councilman Cowkey.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sessa.
I would like to see the percentage of this credit going to the town of Marlborough higher than it is in this agreement. So I am an actual no on this one.
Okay.
Councilman Zambito.
Yes.
All right, thank you. And again, this is the whole agreement. Send it to you. The long agreement. Ooh, boy. You know it's a long agreement when it has a glossary. All right. My gosh. All right. Resolution number 50. And so this is the easement for the Central Hudson Pool. To authorize the grant of an easement to Central Hudson Gas and Electric Corporation enable the construction and operation of a solar PV electric generation facility at 20 Bailey's Gap Road in the town of Marlborough. Supervisor Corcoran proposes the following, whereas the town of Marlborough, the town, and Nexamp Solar LLC, Nexamp, entered into the certain lease option agreement dated August 20th, 2020, the lease option agreement pursuant to which the town granted the option to Nexamp to lease the portion of the town-owned real property located at 20 Bailey's Gap Road, Marlborough, New York, described in Exhibit A, annexed in the lease option agreement, the premises. And whereas on May 21st, 2021, the town board granted conditional site plan approval and a special use permit to Nexamp Inc., the parent company Nexamp at Bailey's Gap Solar LLC, to permit the operation of a solar energy system on the premises, the system, and whereas the terms of the option were modified and the rights to Nexamp under the option were assigned to Bailey's Gap Solar LLC, Bailey's Gap. And whereas enable the development and operation of the system Bailey's Gap requires electrical service to provide by Central Hudson Gas and Electric Corporation, Central Hudson, and whereas to provide the required electrical service, Central Hudson requires an easement over the portion of the premises utility easement, and whereas the map showing the proposed location of utility easement and the form of utility agreement are attached hereto, and whereas it is an interest of the town to grant the utility easement and hereby facilitate the construction and operation of the system. Now therefore be hereby resolved the terms of location of utility easement are approved and the supervisor is authorized to execute the utility easement substantially the form attached hereto, and this is the easement. You guys, I sent you the map. It's basically a 35-foot easement around the pole, which is not used by us anyway. The foregone resolution was duly put to a vote, which resulted as follows.
Supervisor Corcoran.
Yes.
Councilman Cowkey.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sessa.
Yes.
Councilman Zambito.
Yes.
Thank you. Man, where's our officers, Jerry?
Coming.
Why are they here? I told them they didn't.
Okay, all right. We got dressed up for them.
They both inquired as to why. Just we're doing the resolutions. So we're doing the resolutions, we're doing this now for ease of time.
Go up there and explain to the board what we're doing.
So, through the civil service process, there's a certified list that you go for. And I called and requested that list, and I got 2 valid candidates that reside in Marlborough. Since I got that list and the delay with civil service, I know both of those candidates were canvassed by other agencies. So to move expeditiously, I've requested that we move forward with these resolutions appointing them now, although their start date won't be effective tonight. April 1st, I believe, is one, or both. Even the April 1st date, though, is a speculative date because we still have to go through the process of civil service and get the ultimate approval through them. we have done everything we had to on our side in terms of medicals and backgrounds and stuff like that. Officer Zabrowski will be simply going from part-time to a full-time status, and Officer Grieven still needs to provide 2 weeks' notice to his prior employer, and hopefully within that time frame, Civil Service will finish what they have to do so that we can get a mid-April start date, physical start date for him. So that's the...
So we're being proactive here because we know that other agencies are trying to gobble up these guys. They're from Marlborough, which is great. We have a kind of a plan because, you know, as Sergeant Pascal retired, and we possibly will have another sergeant taking that position, which opens up another position. But we also want to get these guys in here so they can learn the road, how we do things.
Right.
Because even though they might be doing another, let's just say an SRO, possibly one of
Right.
them, they do have to have availability other times for road duty. So we want to take the summer months, April, May, June, July, August, hopefully, to get them acquainted with our procedures and our road service and how we do things. And then if one of them has to go to SRO, they have the ability to do that too.
So we're hoping, with the Sergeant Pascal vacating or retiring, that vacated a sergeant's position. Officer Maston, who has successfully completed the promotional exam, is on the list to be sergeant. We can't make him sergeant until we find a replacement for him in the school. We don't have any eligible candidates that currently work for us that wish to go to this school. So we're going to take one of the new hires who is more than willing to go into school, teach him how to be a police officer, because he currently works for the DEP. So they're police officers, but they have a whole different scope of what they do. So we'll have to retrain him to be an actual road patrolman, which is what we plan to do between now and June, as well as train him to be the SRO in the high school to replace Officer Maston. This way, in June, I can respectfully request the promotion of Officer Maston to fill the position vacated by Sergeant Pascal's retirement. That's the plan.
A lot of moving pieces.
Got it.
Officer Zabrowski is already a current part-time police officer with us. We hired him a bunch of months ago as a Phase 2 candidate. We put him through Phase 2. I am hoping that we could wow him with our town. He's been a resident his entire life, but I can hope that we can keep him forever. I don't know if that's in the future plans that he has, but I know we're going to have him for at least a year, if not more. That fills that temporary hole that we have now. Grieven used to be one of our dispatchers who left us for the sole purpose of going to the academy, and the DEP at the time was willing to send him to an academy. He has now fulfilled his dream of becoming a police officer at DEP, but actually now wants to do road work, which the DEP does not do. So he is wishing to come back here.
Which is a rarity.
Which is a rarity.
Do road work, so.
Right.
Good.
He's a young guy. He dispatched here for 5 years before he left.
Just the place for him to do road work.
He is a local kid, so he's a lifer. He's going to do 20 plus years here.
That's great.
He's 24, I think. So hands down, he's a no-brainer. I have some time to work on Zabrowski yet to see if I can get him to stay here forever. But when Westchester calls and say, "Hey, we'll give you $125,000 to walk in our front door," how do you tell a guy not to pursue
Let's
that?
hopefully.
So we'll keep our fingers crossed. Not all of us have left here. Some of us have been here nearly 30 years. So it can happen. It can happen.
You started as a dispatcher,
I
right?
most certainly did.
There you go. Well, thank you, Jerry. Anybody have any other questions, or we're going to go right to it? We're good? All right. Resolution 51, to appoint full-time police officer. Supervisor Corcoran proposes the following. Whereas the Town of Marlborough Police Department has an open full-time police officer position due to the recent retirement of Sergeant Pascal, and whereas the recommendation of the Chief of Police to appoint part-time police officer Frank Dombrowski. Be it resolved that Frank Dombrowski be appointed to full-time police officer effective April 1st, 2023, contingent upon pending civil service medical approval, and moves for its adoption.
Yes.
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 Yes. Resolution 52, to appoint full-time police officer. Supervisor Corcoran proposes the following. Whereas the town of Marlborough will have an opening position for full-time police officer due to the pending medical retirement of Detective Jeremino, and whereas at a recommendation of the Chief of Police to appoint Ryan Greven, be it resolved that Ryan Greven be appointed to full-time police officer contingent upon a background check and civil service approval, and moves for its adoption.
Yes.
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 Yes. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to number 14, adjournment.
Scott, before you adjourn,
Yes.
I just thought we should update the board on the conversation that we had with the Sloop Clearwater.
Yes.
And that was
Go
at
ahead.
our last meeting. They had sent in a correspondence asking for the dock fees to be waived for 2 or 3 days in the spring. And we tentatively voted, but then said that we wanted to contact them to discuss the fees and the waiving of the fees. And what we were able to negotiate after meeting with them was that we would, as promised, waive the fees for the dock. However, we've also negotiated that the town will be able to have a complimentary slot on the Clearwater for the Recreation Committee to use for a children's program.
Yep. Good job. That was a good suggestion.
Well, thank you.
Tammy says she's going to be the first one on.
It'll be fun. We have to solidify the date still with them, but they were very open to it.
No, it was a very good meeting, and Gail was at the meeting too, and it was good, so, very good, so.
And it did turn out as well that the Marlborough Middle School, I think, had inquired for at least 2 of the dates that they'd be here, so it'll all work out nicely.
Yeah. All right, well, that's good, so we're confirmed.
And with that,
Now,
motion
go
to
ahead.
adjourn?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you all.
You gotta tell Eddie he's taking his spot now.
I know.